Hey everyone, we have a new device to take a look at today, one that I was pretty excited to test, and this is the new handheld PC from TECNO called the Pocket Go. The Pocket Go is basically a controller that has a PC inside. It has an 8840U, so it's pretty powerful, and it comes with a pair of AR glasses because there's no screen on the controller. I've had the device for a few weeks now, so I've had a chance to test things out. I've tried what works, what doesn't. I've kind of gotten a feel for how it feels to actually use the device. So I'll show you my test results and share some of my thoughts on this very unique device. Before we get into the review, I'm going to quickly go over the specs so you know what we're dealing with here. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but let's go over the basics here. So the device is advertised to have an 8840HS or an 8840U. The one that I have is an 8840U. My prototype has 16 gigabytes of LPDDR5 RAM at 6400 megatransfers per second. We have a removable battery that comes in at 50 watt hours. For the I/O, we have a headphone jack, 2 USB-C ports, and a micro SD slot. TECNO hasn't really specified what the specs are for the USB-C ports, but I suspect that they're not USB 4 because I was trying to get my eGPU to connect and it simply does not recognize it. Aside from that, we have Hall effect joysticks and triggers. I haven't been able to verify yet, but I do strongly suspect that the joystick modules are full-sized. Moving over to the glasses, they have what they describe as a 215-inch display at 6 meters. I think the field of view is roughly 50 or 51. And just like any other AR glasses or XR glasses, there's two micro OLED displays that project downward onto the lens. They connect via USB-C, and they're also compatible with tablets, computers, basically anything that'll accept a USB-C display out. Now on to what it actually feels like to hold and use the device. The joysticks feel really good. They have decent tension. They feel like a PS4 control. The buttons are a little different. They have micro switches instead of a membrane. The triggers feel pretty good. They have a decent amount of range. The bumpers you can press at all points. We have our start, back, and two menu buttons, one on the right and the left. Our D-pad feels really nice. It feels like there's 8 different points of contact here. On the bottom, we have our micro SD card slot on the left. We have a macro button, and we also have this toggle that's for the glasses. Apparently it's for gyro. I have not tested that out. And on the back side, we have a cover for our batteries, so we can remove this and replace our batteries, which is pretty unique to these handheld devices, and actually it's something that I really like. One thing I noticed right away is the sheer number of air intakes that this thing has. It has one at the front, we have our output at the top, and we have 4 more at the bottom, so there's plenty of air that's going to be running through this device. The device itself feels really comfortable, it's not too heavy, and it feels like just a little bit larger of a controller. Like if I compare it to the Xbox Series controller, it's just a little bit wider. Probably a closer comparison is actually the DualSense controller. The DualSense is a little bit wider than the Xbox Series controller, and it looks a little bit closer to the Pocket Go, although the Pocket Go is still wider and a little bit taller. And then we have the Switch Pro controller, which is definitely smaller, but not by a lot. Again, it's a little bit more narrow, not quite as tall, and a little bit less thick. And now quickly to look at the thickness, you can see it's thicker than the Xbox One controller, as well as the DualSense controller, although the bent out handles make it look similar, and it's a little bit thicker than the Switch Pro controller. And as far as weight goes, it comes to 560 grams with the battery inserted. If you remove the battery itself is 208 grams, which makes up a large portion of the device's weight. And with the battery removed, the device itself weighs 353 grams. So to really summarize the physical side of the controller, I really like it. It's very comfortable to hold. The joysticks are really nice. I like the satisfying click of the buttons. And the size and shape are very similar to a console controller, so it feels really comfortable for someone like me that grew up playing console. There's plenty more to go over. I'm not going to go over the glasses quite yet. We'll get to that later, but I'm sure you guys are wondering how this thing actually performs in game. So let's take a look at some game performance before we come back to the device itself. For the game test demos here, I'm just going to show you settings that I would probably use if I was playing it myself. This isn't going to be like your typical benchmark. Instead, it's just going to be a showcase of settings that I was actually using while playing with the device. For all these game tests, I was not using a set TDP, I just let Windows manage it, so it was likely at about 32 watts. And for the remainder of these clips, I'm just going to stop talking and let you see the video. Settings are in the top left corner.
position. He's too strong.
Enough jib-jab. The upcoming obstacles will take everything your exceptional physique can muster. This is it. The real deal. Get to it, soldier. In all my years, I've never witnessed such acrobatic perfection.
Light makes my throat itch.
During most of those gameplay clips, you could see that the temps for the APU were somewhere in the mid 60s to high 60s. I think one time it went into the 70s. And that's pretty consistent with the results I've had during my testing. I found that the system doesn't seem to run very warm. I'm actually kind of surprised how well it's cooled, which is a really good thing to see. So internally it's fairly cool, but what about the exterior? I have a FLIR camera which I was able to test, and we did find a few hot spots on here that they're not very hot. It's only at 45 degrees right by the charger, but the handles do get a couple warm points compared to the rest of the controller at like the low 30s. So the best way I could describe is it feels slightly warm, but it does not feel hot. Like if you look at the corners of the controller, they're at like the mid 20s. That's kind of what you'd expect for a room temperature controller. So just slightly warmer than what you're probably expecting when you're using the controller. For those familiar with other handheld devices, the Win 4 is probably the closest I can compare it to, and that one was definitely warmer than this one. And that'll wrap it up for the temperature test. I found that it wasn't uncomfortable to hold, it just got slightly warm at times in the handles at the corner. And now onto a battery test. We're going to do 15 and 30 watt TDP to see how long it lasts. I carried over the battery percentage by the phone there for your convenience, but it is a little bit blurry. That's what happens when you take a 2-hour video and try to compress it down as much as I had to. I have Cyberpunk running ultra settings and FSR turned off so that it really pushes the device, and with that we were able to get 1 hour and 48 minutes at 15 watts. And now we'll take a look at 30 watts. So if you take a look at the FPS here, you can see that we're at about 27 FPS, and at 15 watts, we are at about 22, I believe. So not a major performance jump when you're going double the TDP. So when you're gaming on the go, just make sure that you keep that in mind, that you don't need to crank up the TDP, and you could probably get better battery life. Now that our battery is coming close to the end here, you can see that we're just counting down the last few percentages, and we got a total of 57 minutes at 30 watts. These results are not going to be 100% accurate because I have it plugged into a monitor that is powered, so the results are going to be slightly different when you're using the AR glasses. They don't take a lot of power, they take actually very minimal, I think like a watt or two. So the final results would probably be skewed by, I don't know, maybe a couple of minutes. One other cool thing about the battery here is that you don't actually need it to use the device. So I've taken the battery out. You can see it leaning against that gray shelf there, and the back here is empty. So I'm going to take this cord, plug it into the device. This is connected to my dock that has power running. And when I use the device this way, the RGB at the front just turns a solid red. So that means that there's no battery connected. It's just running off of the power. Why this is kind of a big deal is that if you're like me and you often play docked to your monitor, one thing that people often report is that their batteries end up getting swelled because they're always plugged in. So with this, we have the option to remove the battery, keep it plugged in, and you don't have to worry about damaging the battery or any kind of wear and tear. You could just take it out and then put it in when you actually want to take it on the go. While I'm talking about being docked, one thing to note is that I was not able to get my eGPU to connect. When I plug it in, it's not even recognized, so I'm not sure if this device actually has USB 4 or not. They don't advertise it as having USB 4, but when I open up Device Manager, I do see USB 4 there, so I'm not sure if it's something that's just not enabled or if that's just something that the chipset is reporting. Even though it's not necessarily mentioned as like the main use case for the device, I would say playing like this just in controller mode connected to a dock and TV or monitor is actually the way that I like to use the device the most. Especially considering that when you take the battery out, the device only weighs 353 grams. That's only about 70 grams heavier than a DualSense controller. As much as I like the dock mode, the advertised use case is actually with the pair of AR glasses that came with it, so let's take a closer look at these glasses. Starting at the top of the glasses, we have two dials here to adjust the myopia settings. This is very important to make sure that you figure out the right settings for that, as it does greatly impact how clear things look. Moving to the front of the glasses, they're extremely reflective. I would say it's very mirror-like. Like you can see with pretty good detail everything that's reflected on the front of the glasses. The glasses that come with the Pocket Go definitely don't follow the usual trend of mimicking a Ray-Ban style glasses. They look actually very similar to the Ray Neo Air 2S, where they opt just to have one lens across the whole front where it's one solid piece rather than being broken up by frames. It looks very nice, but very susceptible to fingerprints and likely scratching. Now looking at the underside and inside of the glasses, you can see that there's two OLED monitors here. They're very tiny. What they do is they project the image and it goes down to the glass and is reflected off of there. If you think about it, it's kind of wild to see that these little screens are actually 1080p. Now to take a closer look at the arms of the glasses, unfortunately the cord is built in, so it's not something that you can unplug, which is a little bit unfortunate in case the cord gets damaged. And further up the right arm, we have a dial here. This is so you can adjust your volume up and down. And on the left arm, we have one button to turn it on and off, as well as another toggle here to adjust the brightness up and down. As far as flexibility of the arms go, you can bend them outwards slightly, so it's not going to do a lot, but you can do a little bit if you have a bit of a wider head. One last thing for the glasses that I forgot to record is that they do connect to the device through USB-C and that you can use it on other devices. And now on to the thing that you're probably wondering the most about the glasses is what does it look like to look through them? Let's take a look. Alright, so this is what you see when you look inside the AR glasses from the Pocket Go. To capture this, I used my webcam from OBSBot that it's a little bit smaller and I could fit behind the lens. It's hard to capture what it looks like in the glasses with a camera, but this is fairly similar to what it looks like. The colors are pretty good because it's an OLED panel, so both eyes will see the exact same thing. This is coming from a reflection of the OLED screen that's shining downward. It's pretty difficult to record this. My camera kept losing focus. When it is in focus is a good representation of what it looks like. And going back and forth makes it look like it's just one giant screen. Overall, it looks really good, vibrant colors, but you just need to make sure that the myopia adjustments are set up properly so that you get a nice clear image. I will say that the glasses work really well for watching movies, watching TV shows or YouTube, playing games, but they're not as good when you have to deal with really small text. I found that the corners of the display that you see are a little bit blurry. This is something that's very common with XR glasses. I found that they feel very similar to the Legion glasses in that sense. While I was testing the glasses, as well as other glasses like the Viture Pro, X-Real, Ray Neo Air 2S, I found that if you grab a second controller and pair it up with the device, you can actually connect two pair of glasses if you want to play with a friend. I found this would probably be the perfect use case if you're playing, let's say, on an airplane or on a train, somewhere where you're going to be sitting for a long time with somebody else. If you have a spare set of XR glasses, you just connect them, set the display to be duplicated, and then you can play a co-op game together as you're on the flight or on the train. For the controller, really any Bluetooth controller that's compatible with Windows will work. You don't have to use a DualSense. Before I go on to summarize and let you know what I think about the device, I wanted to show you a couple of accessories that you get. So the Pocket Go comes with this case. The case itself is pretty decent. You don't have to worry about your device getting damaged because it is a hard shell case, so it should be able to protect it. And we'll take a look on the inside. It comes with pretty much everything that you need for the controller. It has the controller strapped down. At the top, there's a pouch here where you can store the USB-C cord. At the bottom, we have a microfiber cloth as well as a 65-watt charger. And for the glasses, you get a case as well that looks very similar to the console case, just meant for the glasses, obviously. It's also a hard shell, so you should have your glasses fairly well protected. Looking inside, we have our glasses here, as well as a little pouch at the top to store the cord itself, but also a microfiber cloth that comes with. And the bottom of the case is molded in a specific way that the glasses are only able to go in one way, so you don't really have to worry about your glasses moving around while you're, having the case in your bag or wherever you're storing it. And our last thing to go over before I summarize and share my thoughts is the UI and the software. When you first boot up your TECNO Pocket Go, you're going to get this app that's going to pop up. This is the TECNO Game Box. This is the app that you can basically adjust your settings. You can have some games set up as shortcuts and configure a few other things. The best way that I could describe it is it's, I guess, their own version of like Legion Space or Armory Crate, 1X Console, IS Space, MSI Center. You get the point. It's basically TECNO's version of that. If you want to adjust any settings, you just press the right bumper button, and then you're going to get a new menu that has a bunch of different things you can configure here. You have your hardware summary, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. You can adjust the fan. So you can set different curves if you want. You can customize it however you'd like. And then you have a controller settings here. This is where it gives you first an overview of what the buttons do, what their functions are, and some shortcuts. And if you press A, you can also configure things a bit more. So you can take a look at the shortcut overview, or you can adjust settings. For the settings, you can adjust your dead zone. I actually found that I could turn the inner dead zone all the way down to 1 and the outer dead zone out to 99, and this seemed to work perfectly. There's also a shortcut for downloading the game stores, so it makes it just a little bit easier if you want to get your favorite game stores like Steam, Epic, Xbox, Rockstar, and GOG, whatever you'd want to get. You could just click here, and it's going to give you a shortcut to get to the website. And then there's system settings. This is, you could just modify the library configuration where it's going to go. This is for your screenshots. And then there's a guide here you could take a look at. This will give you some information on how to set up your device, just some quick tips. So be sure to check this out when you're first setting up your device, just so that you have a good idea of what you're doing. Then you can update your system. Here I have no updates. There's probably going to be an update when it launches, I would assume, because your device is going to be coming with an older version from the factory. So make sure you check this out first thing. And then there's an option to go to the desktop. The albums, this is basically where your screen captures are going to go. So I haven't taken any, so I don't have any sitting here. So if I press the menu button on the right here, I get a pull-out menu. This is basically just a quick access to what we looked at before, as well as a couple other settings that we didn't see in there. So here you can turn on airplane mode. You can adjust your Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, take a screenshot, pull up the keyboard. And then you can also adjust some stuff with the CPU here, like you can get a floating window. This is basically like the RTSS, so you get your frame graph. You can adjust what you want to see here, whether you want to see the CPU, GPU, RAM, basically pick what you'd like. And then you can adjust your performance mode. I just left mine at normal. I haven't really tested which one of these performs the best, but we'll have to check that out. This is a quick link to the AMD app, so I have not tested this either. You can adjust your VRAM quite simply. You will need to reboot though, so if I want to go up to 8, you're going to have to reboot your device to get it there. You can also really quickly adjust your resolution for the menu, turn on TDP, so I can turn on or turn off. If I have it off, it's just going to be automatically figured out by Windows. I actually found that performed a little bit better. But if you'd like to lock down a TDP, you can go all the way from 10 watts all the way up to 32. On their website, they advertise 35, so maybe that'll come in an update. Then when you check out the controller, you have gyro mapping, audio vibrations, vibration, and lighting effect. This is the RGB on the controller. And lastly, we have the option to either shut down or restart right from the menu here. We can go back to the game manager. That's that Gamebox app that I was talking about. You can go back to desktop, or you can just close the app. Now I'm going to show you how to navigate Windows and the UI. So in this app here that I was showing before, you can just use controller mode and use R1, L1 and the D-pad to navigate around. The issue does come, however, when you go to Windows, it's not quite as simple. You don't just rotate the joysticks and it automatically works. You do have to actually enable a certain mode. And that's mouse mode that you activate with the M button by pressing for a half a second, and you use the right joystick as your mouse. You can click it in to increase or decrease the speed. I find that I click and adjust the speed regularly depending on what I'm doing. Your mouse buttons are your bumpers, so right bumper is the right click and the left bumper is the left click. If you want to pull up a keyboard, you have to long press that same macro button for about 3 to 5 seconds, and then you'll get a keyboard that pops up. However, it's not perfect. You can navigate it with the control or the mouse, but there's certain scenarios where it ends up not working, like if you click on your start bar and then if you wanted to pull up the keyboard here, it actually ends up sitting behind the start bar, which makes it unusable. So a workaround that I've done is I actually have the Windows touchscreen keyboard that I use sometimes as well. I probably default to using this more often because it always sits at the top and I don't have to worry about any kind of compatibility issues depending on what I'm doing in Windows. So I can just type using the mouse mode, which is not too difficult. I can, pull up the AMD app or whatever I want to do. And one other nice thing with the mouse mode is you can use the left joystick as a scroll wheel. So if you're looking at your library in Steam, for an example, it's pretty easy to get from the top to the bottom. So it's just a nice feature, whether it's on YouTube or your game library. So that's basically navigating Windows with the Pocket Go. It takes a little bit of getting used to. I find that I toggle between mouse mode and game mode quite frequently. It's a little bit difficult to get at first, but eventually you'll get it. Just make sure to take a look at these shortcuts. They will save you some time. And now finally, to summarize what I like about the device and some things that I think could be improved. So for the things that I like, the first thing is that it's quite unique. It's not something that we really see. A lot of companies tend to play it safe. They go with the 7-inch candy bar style device, and this is completely different. And seeing how they've gone with a controller design, that's one thing that they have to get right. And I must say that it is very comfortable. It's something that I do enjoy using to play, especially FPS games. Really, those joysticks and the buttons are really satisfying to use. I find the joystick tension is great. The device seems to run fairly cool as well. Like my temps were not really getting too much higher than 70. Having a removable battery is massive. Being able to, buy a couple extra. And if you're on a flight, then if you bring, 2 or 3 batteries, that's going to last you for quite some time, especially if you're playing at 15 watts. I also like that you can also go without the battery. You can take the battery out, just run it docked. You don't have to worry about wearing down your battery. That's something I'm always conscious about when I leave devices plugged in, so not having to worry about that is kind of nice. The device itself is also fairly light, which is good, especially when you take that battery out. It really doesn't feel any different than using my DualSense controller, my Xbox, whatever. Like the difference is I think it's like 70 grams or so. And I like the fact that it comes with a case for the device as well as for the glasses. That's not very common nowadays, so I'm really happy to see it when I do see it. On to things that can be improved. The TDP optimization needs some work. I found that using 32 watt TDP or really just using the TDP menu tend to get a little bit worse performance than just letting Windows do its thing. The AR glasses, you can't actually see through them. They're completely dark, so I kind of wish that it had that option like some other AR glasses that I've used. I'm also not a fan that the cord is wired directly into the arm. I have pets, and sometimes pets like to bite things, so if my cord gets, bit by one of the cats or my dog, then I'm not going to have a pair of glasses anymore, and I can't replace that. There's a few software bugs that still need to be fixed in the software. It's very early, obviously, and I have a prototype, so they may be fixed by the time the device comes out, but it is worth noting that some of the bugs like the keyboard falling behind other menus, like the start menu is an example. And to add further to that, being able to label even just like a little pop-up that says mouse mode or gamepad mode would be nice, because sometimes I've had it where I'm in gamepad mode, but the mouse is still able to move. So I don't know, there's something weird with that. Just something that I think they can clean up with a bug fix. And lastly, for the AR glasses, I found it quite challenging to be able to set the myopia just right. So you have to play with it quite a bit to get that just right setting. Overall, though, I would say my impression of the device is a positive one. I do plan to use it, and I think my wife is probably going to take it over because she always talks about handhelds being a little bit too heavy, and she really likes playing with a controller. So I think being able to just plug it in with a wire directly docked to the, to a monitor or to a TV will probably suit her quite well. And so I have a feeling I'm probably going to end up losing the device because she's going to take it. If you're watching this video, the campaign has just gone live and they have a early bird special. I think it goes for like $8.69 with the controller, console itself, plus also the AR glasses. I'm not sure what other configurations they're going to be selling because I don't have access to that, but you should be able to see it. I'll leave a link in the description as well as the pinned comment for the Kickstarter campaign, so go check that out. And let me know in the comments if this is something that interests you. Is this a device that you want to see more devices like this? Is this something that you're considering picking up? Or do you think the concept is just something that's a little bit too out there for you? And that's going to wrap up this detailed overview and review. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.